always got to do the backup recording now because somebody,
That was one time.
one time too many, Mister, Sir.
I have no excuse.
You don't. That's all
Zero
right.
0% excuse.
I've got it running though. So we have backup, and good morning everybody, and welcome to LR Mornings with Kyle and Jammer. I'm Kyle.
I'm Jammer.
And why do you sound so down? Shouldn't I be the one that sounds down? Or
I
is it
don't sound down. Actually, I think what it was is I was matching your tone.
Oh, okay.
Because you're like with Kyle and Jammer. You're like, I'm Kyle. And I was like, I'm Jammer. I was basically matching the cadence of your speech. So
I don't know why I said your name in such a down way anyways. Maybe it's because it was all your fault about the recording, and I'm still holding a grudge about that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You're entitled to that. Actually, I do want to talk about something. We got a couple comments from our last episode in regards to the Snyder Cut.
Nice.
The illustrious Snyder Cut, which we're never going to get. And we talked about yesterday's episode. So if you want to hear us bitch and complain about that and the people who are calling for it, listen to that. Check it out. Anyways, we got one from David E. He says, no one wants a Snyder Cut. His movies were failures on almost every level and in every way. All of those sites demanding and have news about a Snyder Cut are just clickbait or trolls. The Snyder Cut of Justice League would be no better than BVS or Man of Steel.
Totally agree.
I don't agree. Well, I mean, maybe, but I like BVS, so who the fuck am I to suck? I like BVS a lot. As far as clickbait or troll, no, I don't think that for sites reporting on that, because that's actual stuff that's hitting. Clickbait is something where you have something in a thumbnail or in the title, then when you click it, it is not at all the content of the article that you're doing. So that's not clickbait. Trolls, probably not trolls. Trolls is literally going in with malicious intent to rile people up. I don't think that's the reason they're doing for it. I think there are genuinely people out there reporting on this who want those things. So I don't agree with that, but yeah, I agree that if you didn't like his movies already, you're probably not going to like his Justice League. I think that's also true. So, and then we have Auntie Faye who says, or Auntie Fa, oh God, really? I just said that aloud. God damn it. Okay, since Shazam did okay and everyone loved Thor Ragnarok, maybe DC should just give in and do a silly Justice League comedy along the lines of Contest of Superheroes. And then someone replied to that, Charlemagne Baloney said, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, Cord, your time has come. Just mind the Keith Giffen area, the JL, JLI, JLA comics. Shazam, aka the real Captain Marvel, is, oh God, you're bringing that into play, is even a bit player in those. How do you feel about these comments?
So, pretty much, David E., I agree with his take on it, except for that everybody putting out, whenever Snyder releases an image, that's legitimate news. Snyder saying, hey, here is something that I shot, or here's an idea that I had. That's legitimate news.
Yeah.
And it does it feed a hunger out there? Yeah, but that's what part of the news business is feeding the hunger for information.
And the entertainment news business.
Entertainment news. And that's what we do. So, I don't think there some trolls, like you said. Yeah, sure, there are some out there, but the majority of people that are covering it, they're doing it legitimately for legitimate reasons. But I do agree that a lot of people don't want it. Like you said, it's a loud vocal minority that is demanding this Snyder Cut, because a lot of people still do think Snyder's version of the DC movies weren't good.
I was excited for the future of the DC universe. I still am, but I was excited for a different one than we're getting.
Auntie, no, I mean, I don't. DC and Warner Brothers have got to find their own thing. Shazam was great as a silly kind of superhero comedy, but that's worked for that character. That's not going to work for others. And I've been hearing about Booster Gold and Blue Beetle and a couple other characters as hey, let's do these DC heroes. I don't know jack shit about them, so why not? I mean, look what Marvel did with Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't even really well known to mainstream comic books readers. They were an obscure cosmic group. So yeah, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. I have no idea how well that'll look on screen, but go ahead, do it.
I'm sure they could figure it out.
Yeah.
I know that they've been. I mean, they have, as far as I know, script developed and stuff. It's just a matter of whether or not they want to pursue it. So we'll wait and see on that front. Also,
but
random.
It's not coming. So.
No, it's not coming. Yeah, that Snyder Cut's not coming. Yeah, sorry. I wish it will, but it's not going to. Do the comic book idea. That was a good idea.
Yep.
I do that.
Comic book idea.
And if you don't know what that is, listen to yesterday's episode.
Yeah.
Also, something that bothered me, and I think we talked about it, maybe not on this podcast, but probably on those fanboys, because I don't think this podcast existed back then. We've been at it for a month, right? So yeah, it did not exist, or maybe it did. When did? No, it didn't. So Avengers Endgame came out, and people, loved it. But there was one thing that some people were like, oh, how does... Like, it makes no sense that all of Peter's class is back in Spider-Man Far From Home. And a lot of people are calling that a plot hole and blah, 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 blah. We recently spoke with Jon Watts, the director of Spider-Man Far From Home, and he was just like, I mean, statistically, it's 50% of the world's population. That doesn't mean it would be 50% of each high school class, so it could have gone either way. I mean, this is kind of obvious, but I feel like there are so many people out there who are like, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. It's like, really? 6 people out of, 8 billion are snapped, and it's weird? Like, it really isn't. Like, maybe it's a coincidence, but maybe not. And Jay Alexander, one of our commenters, says, it's obviously not a plot hole. It's just piss-poor storytelling to rely on such a convenience, and it's a missed opportunity to provide some more depth of character by having him come back to see the life he knew had passed on his and his focus would turn into more becoming Spider-Man and a future leader in the Avengers instead of European Vacation 2, the MCU edition. How do you feel about that?
So I actually am one of those that has been a pretty big defender of most things Endgame, as far as like the time travel complaints people have had. I was the first person really point out to a lot of people that Cap didn't age in his prime timeline. But then you got confusing things from the writers versus the Russo brothers. The Russos were like me. He aged in an alternate timeline, returned to his prime timeline to hand off the shield. And the writers were like, no, we always knew that the husband and kids that what's her name had were Captain America. Okay, whatever. When it comes to this aspect of it, it's not poor storytelling. It's definitely done on purpose. Yes, they were all snapped, but it's believable that they were all snapped. It would have been cool to have 1 or 2 of them have aged over the 5 years and maybe gotten a position at the school as a counselor, as a substitute, as something. There could have been at least one kid that he recognized that didn't get snapped away, that aged, or but did you need all of his group of friends to age? No. Could it have been an interesting story if they did, and he's stuck 5 years in the past, basically? That could have been interesting as well. But I'm totally stoked about this movie. I really don't give 2 shits about why the kids were snapped or why half of them didn't get snapped while the other half ate. I don't care. We're getting Mysterio, god damn it.
Yeah. So as far as lazy story or piss poor storytelling to rely on convenience, it really isn't that much of a convenience. I'm going to go ahead and say that it really isn't that much of a convenience when you look at the logic of everything. Also, the criticism that it could have been this more interesting story. I also don't care for that type of criticism where it's like, oh, they didn't do what I thought would be a more interesting direction to go, therefore it is bad. Yeah. I don't like that. I usually it's like, okay, what story are they trying to tell? How did they tell it? And then basically judge it on those merits. So I see where you're coming from. That would be an interesting story, but I don't think it's not that big of a deal. It really isn't. Like, I don't think it's not worth the 3 minutes that we spent talking about it, even though I brought it up myself.
I think we always do this. We even do this in our Slack channel. It's always coming up. Well, what if we did this instead? Or if I were in charge, I would have, especially when episode 8 hit with you guys. I wasn't with you guys when episode 8 hit, but I'm sure it was like that, and I've been there for the conversations ever since. And then you got same thing with Game of Thrones. There's always going to be conversations of this would have been cooler in my mind. And yeah, you're right. In your mind, it would have been cooler. Would it have definitely worked on screen better than what we're going to get? Probably not.
I mean, it's possible.
It's possible,
but like at the end of the day, I don't think
but
judging or being angry at studios for not
No.
going down the road that you want them to is constructive or healthy.
I think it's fine to be upset and be angry even. It's
I don't.
the level of anger and what you do with that anger is what's healthy or unhealthy. But
I think you're allowed to go like, oh, that would have been cool if they did this. Okay, move on. That's basically what I think. You're allowed to express disappointment, but I don't know, not much else. But I'm also very, very forgiving when it comes to this stuff. A lot of people are pretty fucking brutal, and that's not me.
yeah, wow.
And actually, another fun detail that you'll probably appreciate, we were talking with Jon Watts, Spider-Man Far From Home director, and we asked about the, specifically Gig asked about the Mysterio costume. And they're like, so why did you go with something that is so comic book accurate? Like, how did that happen? And Jon Watts said, literally, that was like the first concept art they went with. They saw that, and it was literally as comic book accurate as possible, fishbowl and all. And then they went down other paths. Then they started to do a bunch of other stuff. But at the end of the day, they went back to that one because that's Mysterio.
Yeah, it's
kind of cool.
My kid and wife got me the Funko Pop. Is that what they're called? Yeah, the little pop bobblehead of Mysterio, and it's sitting up on my shelf now. And it's a fucking awesome looking costume. Not just the Funko Pop, but the damn images that we see on trailers and stuff. I'm totally stoked about it. I've got my tickets for first showing of the morning on July 2nd. I couldn't do a July 1st midnight preview or whatever. So
right.
But I'm excited, and it's gonna be good, regardless if it just so happens all of Peter's friends were snapped. Who cares? It's gonna be great.
I do want to talk.
Trust.
I think it's cool that I think that kind of illustrates what's kind of special about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is sort of the purity of it. Obviously, they make all sorts of changes, like a lot of them. But when it comes to sort of the core character stuff, they tend to nail it, and they tend to kind of know what fans care about and what's important.
Yeah.
And just the fact that Mysterio's fishbowl helmet and his overall costume is being retained, like that, the purity of that is being retained is pretty awesome. The fact that even that was their first one, they tried other ones to make it more realistic, I guess.
Yeah.
But then they kept going back to the other one. It just really, I think, shows how much they care about these characters as a whole.
Oh,
Spider-Man in general.
Look at how many characters' costumes they could have really messed with, and if you've seen some of the alleged concept art for some of them. Like Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange was actually the first costume I was afraid of when he was announced many, many moons ago. I was like, there's no way they're going to give him a big red flowing cape. He might have like a blue suit of sorts and with red trim or something like that. Nope, motherfuckers, they did it. He's fucking comic book accurate, 100% comic book accurate. They even put him in the gloves for the scene in Thor Ragnarok, the yellow gloves that he wears from time to time in the comics. They even did that. They gave us that. And that's absolutely ridiculous. Why would Dr. Stephen Strange wear yellow gloves in the MCU? It doesn't really make sense. But they did it. It's great. I mean, I can't think of a single costume. I know some people were like, oh, they could have done more with Hawkeye, but nobody wants to see any version of the Hawkeye comic book mask on Hawkeye in this universe. So
yeah,
I'm down with the costume choices that they've made. It's much better than Fox Studios' X-Men sitting there making jokes about the costumes that literally, I think in 2000 you would have had a lot of people happy to at least see yellow and blue leather instead of just black leather. So,
but it was the 2000s, so black leather was badass. That was cool. That was the hip thing to do, man. Clearly, you're not with it.
I don't know a single person that saw that movie and liked the costumes except
I
for
did
some
at the
studio
time.
executives.
At the time, I did because it was of the age of the time. I also wasn't as big into comics back then, and I couldn't possibly see a way for them to make the costumes look good without it making look ridiculous. Like literally spandex. Like, obviously we have a lot of comic book accurate outfits, but we don't have spandex really these days, right?
Yeah.
It's something that looks different and unique. And back then, I couldn't imagine it looking good in any way, shape, or form without it being adapted for quote unquote real life. And for some reason, black leather in my head seemed more like real life, which is stupid. But I was a child, so there you go. Or I was like 13 or 12 or however old I was back then. So I just couldn't see it. I didn't have the vision for it. And my fear is always like these movies ending up like a lot of anime or a lot of Japanese live action adaptations where it just looks like cosplay as opposed to, actual costumes.
Yeah.
So back then, that's pretty much what I imagined these things would be. They'd look like more like porn parodies than the actual movies themselves. So that's why I was kind of in defense of something like the black leather back then.
Yeah. Well, we're all wrong sometimes, Jammer.
We are, and I was wrong back then. Like, I've admitted it. You're not. It's not a slight against me, man. You were right.
No. You know what's crazy though is they fixed the X-Men costumes with Deadpool, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead has the best X-Men looking comic in all of X-Men movies, or costume in all of X-Men franchise movies, including Deadpool. And going into Dark Phoenix, they still couldn't commit to that ultimate X-Men style that they did with Negasonic. They still went with these weird utility feeling type uniforms that looked bulky on some of the characters and looked real stiff. And I don't know. I was just all that time they still seemed to not get it for the main franchise, but they did a really good job with Negasonic.
Yeah, for that one, it was so they could just go all in. They went all in. They're like, we're going full comic book accurate with this fucker, and they did. Good for them. Good for you guys. You got it right. It took you a while, but you got it right. Yeah, comic book shit. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
One thing go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So LRM, we're going to be going to San Diego Comic-Con, and as you guys may know, for like 3 years ago, we held a contest with the people who made the Netflix movie The Circle, that one of you readers or listeners or however would be able to get one of your episodes produced or one of your shorts produced, incorporated into a new series called Dark Web. It's been a long time. They have been working a long time on this thing, and I'm sure plenty of you out there have forgotten about it or just figured, it's never coming. Well, it's coming. It is finally coming. If you're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, they're going to have a panel. I don't know. Keep an eye out for a panel. I don't know when specifically, but it's going to happen. Also, there's going to be a world premiere there. And if you go to the site, you will go ahead. You'll see we have like an article on it. You can check it out. You can RSVP there if you want, and you'll see. It's a first come first served basis. So I can't guarantee you'll get a seat. But it's a chance, to give it a shot, to check out and see this brand new miniseries for all to enjoy. So for those who don't know, it's kind of like a Black Mirror-esque type thing where it's anthological, semi-anthological. So there's an overarching storyline revolving around sort of paranoia on the dark web, which is sort of the deep back area of the internet that most people don't visit, where you could find stuff like, I don't know, really dark stuff. Drugs. I don't know, like prostitutes, assassins, all that kind of shit. Anyway, so there's all that stuff on there, or that's what dark web is. And basically, the theme of this thing revolves around that concept of dark web. There's an overarching story, and then within each story, within each episode, there is sort of a separate standalone, like I'd say 15-minute or so, anthological type mini thing that is somehow incorporated into the story, and one of those is the one that one of you readers managed to write. So it's all in there. They have a lot of great talent and directors. If you like Buffy, they have some people from Buffy acting in it. They have Gabe Luna, who's the new Terminator, and he's also the guy from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We have someone from Lost in Space there, from Transformers, Paranormal Activity, Mad Men, just a bunch of people.
We got stars.
We got stars up in there. So a lot of them are also going to be at the panel. So keep an eye out for that panel and try to make it if you can. And RSVP on the site for the world premiere at the Hard Rock Hotel.
Yay!
Yay! Yay!
Maybe that can help save some of the summer slump on entertainment that the box office seems to be continuing to go through. I was seeing the Godzilla King of the Monsters might end its run at around 400 million worldwide.
It is disappointing.
I still want to see it, but I feel I don't know, because everybody complained about the first one, not enough monster, and then in this one they're complaining not enough humans. I'm going to go see a monster movie, so I'm down with it being mostly monster, but what does this mean for the ape? Do we still get to fight the ape?
I don't know. I'm concerned. I'm really concerned. And I'm also concerned mostly because the guy they have on board to direct it is Adam Wingard, who also directed the much maligned Death Note adaptation for Netflix.
Yeah.
I liked the movie. I thought it was fine. Like it wasn't loyal to the comic or to the manga, but it was its own separate fun thing. And I'm wondering if the studio, because of his history and because of the box office reception as well as the critical reception of that one, they're going to get cold feet on this whole franchise. You know, they don't want to waste any more money. I'm trying to think here. So $400 million. The movie cost $200 million. And that's without marketing. So
production budget on Box Office Mojo says 170.
I saw it was like it's ranging between 170 and $200 million depending on who you read. But let's go with Box Office Mojo because they're usually most reliable. Is 170. Okay, so 170. Let's say another. This is let's say 170 million, or excuse me, let's say $75 million marketing budget. Would you say that sounds like it could be plausible?
I was going to say between 70 and 80. Yeah, easily.
Okay, so 75, not times 75, plus 75. So that is 245 million in expenses. So let's say it does make 400 million at the end of its run. 400 at the end of the day, including the theatrical release. Including the theatrical cut. It usually makes like around 60 some odd % of it, meaning that they will be making around $264 million of that $400 million at the box office, meaning that's not even breaking even based on those numbers that we had, or it's close to breaking even.
Yeah.
If there's a profit, it's going to be very slim. So it's going to be close, but it may lose money. It may make a little bit of money, but it's hard to say.
Yeah.
So who knows if they can justify making another movie?
It's going to be disappointing in series looking worldwide. Kong Skull Island took in 566 million, while Godzilla, the 2014 movie, brought in 529. So you're looking at a movie that's going to be doing, 150 million less than its predecessors. And that, I don't know, maybe because Kong did do pretty well. Maybe they'll be like, okay, well, it's not Godzilla people want. They want the damn fucking King Kong. So let's still do Kong versus Godzilla. So yeah. I still plan on seeing King of the Monsters. I really want to see it in theaters. I wanted to see it in RPX, but that time has come and gone. And but I'll make it around to seeing it. If not, I've got a 65-inch TV with surround sound, so it'll be okay. It won't be as great, but it'll be okay. I was really excited about that one and kind of sad when people weren't liking it. Not meaning that I wouldn't like it, just I was hoping it would do real well.
Yeah, and we're always hoping that these things do well. Granted that they are good movies, but I can understand the criticisms that it's not a good movie, I guess. Because I understand we don't want monsters, or excuse me, we don't want a bunch of humans in our Godzilla movies. But at the same time, if the humans are taking up any screen time, I want to at least care what's going on, right? I don't want that just to be like me looking at my watch being like, okay, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? That's just, it is a perfectly acceptable criticism, I think.
Yeah, I could see that. whatever. I plan on seeing the movies that I want to see, regardless of what other people say. For the most part, there's a few people that if you tell me that, hey, it's garbage, I'm gonna pay attention. Or if there was something that I didn't plan on seeing, and somebody whose opinion I trust says you need to see this, I'll definitely go check it out. But yeah, I'm hoping we see the monkey fight the lizard.
The monkey fight. I hope so too. Like, I was like, what the fuck is that? It's not a monkey. It doesn't have a tail. Come on. Fucking amateur hour.
Right. So yeah. Anyways, it's about it for the day, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's good enough for now.
That's about it. Yeah. I definitely need to go lay down.
Well, you go ahead and feel better, and we'll close out this episode of LR Mornings. Where can people find you, Kyle?
I am at that Kyle Malone on Twitter, as well as writing and producing stuff for LRMonline.com and LR Mornings every Monday through Friday.
Whoa. And you can find me on Twitter at JamTheWriter. And all my stuff at LRMonline.com. Of course, this isn't the only podcast we do. On Fridays, we do Los Fanboys. On Wednesdays, is it now? We do the LRM Ranks It.
Yep,
correct.
LRM
the
Ranks
podcast
It comes out today. So yeah, me and Nick Dahl ranked Star Wars video games top 5.
All right, Star Wars video games top 5. Check that out. Mondays, we have BGR the P, Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast. So if something like a more deep dive into a specific film-related or entertainment-related subject is your thing, go ahead and check out that podcast with Tanya, with Brandon, and Nick Dahl. So thank you so much for listening, guys, and we'll see you guys next time.